We live in the wealthiest time in human history. We are surrounded by surplus and technology unimaginable even a century ago. Yet, according to economic historian Gregory Clark, this is an extremely recent phenomenon, as the average person in the year 1800 was no better off materially than the average person of 100,000 BC. Let that sink in. For 100,000 years, a period encompassing the rise of agriculture, the invention of writing, the great empires, humanity was trapped in a cycle of endless stagnation. Every time we invented a technological marvel, from the wheel to the printing press, our material standard of living did not sustainably improve, it just reset. Clark argues that one simple, brutal mechanism, the Malthusian Trap, was at fault. Any short-term gain in income from technology, a better seed, or a faster loom, was inevitably and immediately lost to population growth. More food meant more babies, and more babies meant the food had to be spread thinner. This trap led to brutal metrics. The life expectancy in the year 1800 was only 30 to 35 years, and the poor of 1800 in wealthy countries like England were likely poorer calorically and structurally than their remote hunter-gatherer ancestors. They were in a trap, and they couldn't see the edges. The Industrial Revolution, which began around 1800, changed everything. The economic line finally soared. But why did the escape only happen on one tiny island in England? And why did it happen when it did? The conventional answers are coal, capital, or good institutions. But according to Clark, they are all wrong answers. The real answer began thousands of years earlier, deep within the Malthusian era, in a process of silent societal selection. If technological progress couldn't save us, what did? This is where Clark introduces the most controversial idea of the book: survival of the richest. In pre-industrial England, economic success translated powerfully and consistently into reproductive success. The wealthiest men, the merchants, the landowners, the successful craftsmen, had roughly twice as many surviving children as the poorest. They were not just surviving, they were out reproducing, and the poorest were literally dying out, replaced generation after generation. Because the rich were vastly out reproducing the poor, their surplus children had to, on average, move down the social ladder to find work. The son of a successful merchant became a petty trader. The son of a craftsman became a simple laborer. The societal escalator only went down for the vast majority. The process systematically injected the genetic and cultural attributes of the successful, what Clark calls bourgeois values: patience, thrift, hard work, literacy, non-violence, into the entire population over centuries. Clark argues the economy was literally shaping the people to better suit the conditions for growth. This evolution of modern man was happening globally, including in China and Japan. But England was faster. Why was the selective reproductive pressure more severe in pre-industrial England? For decades, economists have claimed the Industrial Revolution was caused by institutional changes, like secure property rights or democracy. But Clark meticulously documents that England had these institutional prerequisites by 1200 AD. The essential framework was there long before the growth started. The Industrial Revolution occurred in England precisely because the slow, selective internal evolution of the people, driven by the Malthusian Trap, was most advanced there. This cultural and biological shift was the final precondition. China and Japan were headed in the same direction, but slower. Why? Because the upper classes in China and Japan were only modestly more fecund than the masses of the population. They didn't have the same cascade of children pushing bourgeois values down the social scale from the top. Once a critical mass of people possessing the necessary patience and commercial skills was reached, the rate of technological change finally accelerated past the point where population growth could catch it. The long flat line broke, the trap was broken. The Industrial Revolution was less of a sudden fissure and more of an inevitable evolutionary release that took centuries of Darwinian pressure to achieve. While the trap was broken for some, it created a massive new problem, the Great Divergence. The gap in incomes between the richest and poorest nation is now of the order of 50 to 1. Our global economic map is defined by this split. Clark argues that some nations, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, remain trapped in the new Malthusian era, where access to technology merely produces more people, not higher living standards. He suggests the key problem might be a continued lack of those very bourgeois values required for high productivity. He quotes, "Workers in India work for as little as 15 minutes each hour. The book's ultimate surprise is its final rejection of foundational economic belief. Has all the wealth made us happier? Clark says no. Rapidly rising incomes in successful economies since 1950 have not produced greater self-reported happiness. Our happiness is relative, not absolute. This drive for status is likely another cultural or biological heritage from the Malthusian struggle, where the contented may well have lost out. The Malthusian Trap shaped not just the economy of the past, but the competitive, restless nature of modern man. A Farewell to Alms is less an economic history and more of a story of human evolution by natural selection.